Hi, welcome to Long Lost Friends. I'm Elizabeth Eve King.
And I'm Andrea Goyan. And together
we're
long
lost friends. Today, we are really excited to be talking to Mercedes Lackey. Welcome, Mercedes.
Hello there.
Hey.
Mercedes is a writer of fantasy novels. She's published over 140 books. She writes about 5.5 per year on average and has been called one of the most prolific science fantasy writers of all times. In 2021, she was named the 38th Damon Knight Grandmaster, excuse me. She also has worked in raptor rehabilitation, enjoys beadwork, costuming, and needlework. She's also been active in the filking community, which is kind of like sci-fi folk singing. She's participated in the Stellar Guide series published by Phoenix Pick, and the series pairs best-selling famous authors like Lackey with lesser-known authors for help provide visibility to them. She's active in the online question and answer forum, Quora. Welcome, Mercedes.
Mercedes, can we get you, since we can't see your pets because your birds are in the other room, will you do some pet calls for us? You were telling us about all your amazing pet, animal calls. I wouldn't say a tiger is a pet, so.
I got some a minor in ethology in college, which was ethology is the study of natural animal behavior, and that's how I ended up getting into raptor rehab, was via ethology. But as a consequence, I learned to do quite a number of calls. The one that I use most often is for great horned owls, because we have a resident pair and have had a resident pair here since, I think, within the first year that we moved. And we think that the current resident pair is, one of them is one of our releases. I mean, it's hard to be sure, but we think that it is. So if you master the great horned owl call and you use it during their mating season and their hatching season, you can get them to come close enough you can see them very easily they usually won't come down far out of the tree, but it's easy to see them in the tree because they're huge. And that is that's the female. The male is a little higher up.
And will doing that attract either one of them?
Yes.
I mean,
yes,
okay.
it doesn't matter which you do. The females are usually more aggressive than the males at their territory. So if you do another female, generally both of them will come to see who the heck is showing up.
And can you tell the difference when you see them? Sorry, Elizabeth.
The female is always much bigger than the male.
Okay.
That's because she's having to tote eggs around. The other thing is that with raptors, the female is always bigger than the male, for both because of the eggs and because this means they can go after two different sizes of prey. So say in the great horned owl, the female can easily take rabbits, no problem at all. The male can take skunks and field rats. So they're widening their ability to hoover up the landscape for food.
So I know we're going on a weird topic. So I know that owls have owl pellets, like they'll eat a whole mouse or something. Do the great horned owls have that too?
All owls do that. All owls do that. It's a combination of things. One is that they need a lot of calcium, so they have to eat the whole animal, but not all of that is going to get digested. The other thing is they don't have a crop. Most birds have a crop. They don't have a crop, so they can't, they need to scour their stomach out fairly frequently, and that's what that sicking up is for. It's the feathers and fur acts like acts like a sponge mop in there, and they scrub out their stomach, and then anything that they don't need, out it goes.
Heard of you. So what about raptors though? Do they have that size differential and prey differential?
Yeah, all raptors have the size differential. The differential gets smaller when you get down into the smaller raptors like the kestrelets, and the female and male kestrels are basically about the same size. But once you get higher, bigger than say a sharp-shinned hawk, the males are always smaller than the females.
And what, give us a time period when we should go out and try the, what is it? Do it again, please. Whoa. Whoa.
Oh, you're saying who.
We'll have to work on that, Elizabeth.
And then there's the I can also bring in barred owls, which is they do that. But the other thing they do is something that will, if you ever hear it out in the wild, it will raise the hair on your back because it sounds like a monster. It's that's a little barred owl. You know what barred owls eat? Biggest thing they'll go for is a mouse or a frog. And it sounds like this monster out in the woods.
I believe, well, they're scary looking to me. I've seen them in the, when I worked in a raptor place and they had the barn owls and they all have those flat faces and hiss at you.
That's barred, B-A-R-R-E-D, not barn.
Oh. So
Barn owls scream. I can't do a barn owl. They also hiss. That I can do.
The hissing was what scared me.
Oh, the barn owls are just. Actually, there was some research lately. I was very curious as a rehabber because I would talk to rehabbers and handlers over in the UK, and they talk about their sweet barn owls and how nice they are to handle and how easy they are to handle. And I'm going, that's not the same bird. Even though they look absolutely identical, turns out they're not the same bird.
Huh.
European barn owls are just not the same as North American barn owls. North American barn owls are 10 pounds of hate in a 1 pound sack.
When I was a teenager, I volunteered at the San Francisco Zoo, and we had a barn owl that hatched that we were handling when it was young. I mean, he got to be full size, but he was at that age, because he was still young, he was very sweet.
Yeah. And then they grow up and they turn into 10 pounds of hate in a 1 pound sack.
I think
you know how barn owls are fledged? Do you know how barn owls are fledged?
No.
In North America, at least, first mom will bring them half-killed prey. And they're supposed to kill it themselves in the nest. Then she'll bring them crippled prey. And they're supposed to chase it around the nest and kill it themselves. Then she'll bring them live prey. And then she won't come anymore. Fly or die, kid.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, no motherly love there.
So Elizabeth and I were chatting before, and a little bit with you too, Mercedes, about how all this, the raptor knowledge, all of your science knowledge comes into play when you're writing. Do you find that it's helped you a lot, or you use it a lot?
Yeah, I do, actually. I'm really no fun when it comes to me making my setting as much like reality as possible. I'm the guy that goes, that animal doesn't do that. Like, oh, I made David Brin so mad. Because in the, I think it's in The Postman, he leaves a horse in a shed with a giant sack of grain and
Oh,
wanders off. You know what's going to happen. If you have had anything to do with horses, you know what's going to happen. That horse is going to eat the entire sack of grain all at once, founder, and die. And I looked at him and I told him, that's what's going to happen. You just killed the horse. Congratulations.
yeah, wow.
But I'm really no fun. I'm the one that raises the, I do it to my husband all the time when we're writing together. I'm the one that raises the objections to, no, they don't, that kind of animal doesn't act that way. But no, they don't.
But I love that. Unless you're making something up that doesn't exist.
Unless you're making
you know.
something up, then and even then I require consistency and rules.
But yeah, you have to, I think that's what makes your fantasy so believable, is that it follows rules that are natural history rules. And so it's way easier to believe. I have a question. You said you minored in ecology. What did you major in?
Just by straight biology. I went to Purdue University. And fortunately, they had Eric Klinghammer there, who was one of the foremost North American experts on wolf behavior. And in a perfect world, that's probably what I would have gone into. But in an imperfect world, you have to make a living. So I went straight into retail.
Did you?
Yes.
What were you selling?
I was working in a big box store.
Really?
Yeah.
And then how did you get into writing? So, because you were headed toward biology, were you not? I mean, a career in science.
Pretty much. And, you know, I didn't work out. About when I graduated is when they started having that flood of kids coming out of 2-year technical degrees with lab tech certifications, and I couldn't get a lab tech job.
Oh. And then you started writing?
Well, I'd been writing all my life. I've been writing since about the age of 10, I think. But I was well aware at the time that writers don't make a living writing. Even then, I knew that. And mostly I wrote for my own pleasure. And then about 1977 or 78, I discovered science fiction fandom, fanzines, and fan fiction. Is that bothering you?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Birds. But did you start writing fan fiction? Because it's funny, I was just talking to Andrea before we started, which, because I hadn't known this, is Marion Zimmer Bradley was a mentor of yours, right?
Yeah.
And she got in some kind of I don't know, it was so crazy, I couldn't even figure it out, where some fan wrote a fan fiction and then tried to sue her for her work or something.
Yeah, and that was after I was a pro. I started out writing fan fiction for just about anything I liked, and Darkover was one of those things. I did a little Star Wars. I did a little Star Trek. I did a little comic books. I prose, not doing the comic itself. And I got published in fanzines. And after about 2 or 3 years of this, I thought, you know, I've had enough practice with this. I should be able to sell something somewhere. And So I started out with Darkover. That was when Marion opened up the Friends of Darkover anthologies. So I started out with a Darkover short story. And I also sent some original fiction to a magazine called Fantasy Book Magazine. And Marion was the one that bought my first story. But my first published story was in the magazine because the magazine came out before the anthology did.
Wow.
And yeah,
So
the crazy story is that Marion routinely, if she liked how somebody had handled something, you know, just the basic plot, not the prose or the details, but she'd like how somebody handled a relationship or something. She would say, okay, can I use this? And I'll give you a thank you in the acknowledgement. And she'd done that several times on several Darkover books. And finally, she did this with someone, and thinking she was in the middle of writing a book when she said that, and thinking she was going to get the same answer, which is, oh great, I love that, thank you, being in the acknowledgements is wonderful. The writer in question came back with, no, you can't, and I want a full collaborator credit, and I want to get paid. And Marion very properly said, no, that's not going to happen. You're not doing any of the work on this book. I'm doing all the work. Thank you very much. That's not going to happen. And I heard about it at that point because I was at that point a full pro, and we shared the same agent. And the upshot of it was that Marion completely canceled the book. You'll never see it. She destroyed the manuscript.
oh,
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I mean, there were threats of lawsuits and all kinds of silly nonsense. The thing is,
so crazy.
you can't copyright an idea. You can't copyright a plot. You can't copyright an idea. You can only copyright the finished expression of that idea. And apparently, judging by all the questions on Quora I get, people still don't get that.
Can you
Well,
copyright
that's
a character?
You can trademark a character. You cannot copyright a character. But you also can't borrow that character from someone else and use it in your own original work, because that becomes a derivative work from the original, and you can't make derivative works without permission.
Huh.
So that leads us a little, because we wanted to talk to you about your what you do on Quora, because you are so active there and answer so many questions for people. Clearly, you know all this stuff that you're giving your advice on.
I have very deep knowledge on very specific subjects. So don't ask me about snakes.
But coyotes and wolves and birds of prey.
Coyotes and wolves, I'm pretty good at. I am not as good as some of the other wildlife rehabbers they've got on there. Raptors, I know.
Did you ever do, did you do small mammals like foxes, or? did you do wolves?
I know, I generally turn them straight over to people who were experts in them. There's so much specific information you have to have. The longest I ever had a mammal that I wasn't feeding to the raptors was when I had a deer for about 12 hours, and I was just, I would not have taken in this fawn at all, because if you find a fawn laying down, leave it the fuck alone. Mom is somewhere around and she's waiting for you to go away. But the neighbors' mastiffs next door had found the fawn and they were dragging it across my lawn.
Oh,
So we chased them off, and the fawn was fortunately unhurt, but God knows where the dogs had gotten her from. We live out in the country. It could have been anywhere. So at that point, it becomes a rescue rather than a replace. And I had to call around and find somebody that did deer. And meanwhile, the first thing I did was look up, what do you do with a fawn? Fortunately, there was internet at that point.
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
adorable. I got to feed a fawn once and poop it, and it was, I so wanted.
All baby animals are adorable. That's their superpower.
It is.
Yeah, I guess it is their superpower, huh? Because they just, oh gosh, this fawn, I will never forget it. And I just worked with it for a day or so. But it was so cute.
Baby mammals are something you want to hug and keep, and that's unfortunately that's the problem. People do not realize that Disney is wrong. This will grow up to be something you really are very sorry you ever brought into your life. And it's inevitable. Even deer, especially stags, if they're imprinted on people, they see people as sexual rivals. And that means when mating season comes along, you are a sexual rival and you are going to get gored.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know you shouldn't, but they're still just so adorable. It's really hard to have that. I mean, the knowledge, but still.
Oh,
it's hard.
I fully acknowledge how cute they are. But there's lots of other things that's cute too, like kittens and puppies, and people should
yeah.
be adopting those.
I agree. I 100% agree. Would you mind doing a coyote howl?
Okay. The difference between a coyote howl and a difference between and a wolf howl is very profound. I'll do them both. The coyote is and the wolf is
Wow. That is so cool. So if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
persevere.
It looks like you took it.
I know, it looks like you did that.
I took my own advice, I didn't give it to me myself back then, but yeah, that would be the one to. The other piece of advice is I think I would have started trying to go pro earlier while I was in college.
When did you go pro or start to go pro?
I went fully pro about 1989, I think. No, it was 1992. I went fully pro when I was in 1992.
And what do you, what is that a book that I mean, when you say it's like
I had gotten some extremely good advice from Bob Asprin. And I figured a guy who had been an accountant for Xerox probably knew money. So he said, you need to have at least 5 books in print. Every book has to have done better than the one before it. You need at least 3 contracts and a full year's expenses in the bank. And that includes expense for health insurance. because shit happens. You might you might end up in a situation, well, heck, Manly Wade Wellman died because he got an infected leg and he didn't have the health insurance to take care of it, and that's what killed him.
Oh,
Yeah. So
I didn't know
So
that.
that's what I did when I had 3 contracts. Actually, I had more than 3 contracts. I had 6 contracts in the bank. I had a bunch of books that were doing better. Each one had done better than the one before it, and I had a full year's expenses in the bank. So that's when I went pro
Wow.
and never looked back, because I was a computer programmer and I was the one that got the 3 a.m. calls, and I was really tired of them. Books don't.
So that's
call
what
at
you were,
3 a.m.
you were a computer programmer?
Yeah, I was a computer programmer at American Airlines.
Wow.
Wow, exactly. I know.
You've worn many hats other than the one you're currently
Oh yeah,
wearing for
lots and
us.
lots of hats. I've been in retail. I was very briefly a lab tech at Notre Dame. And if Dr. Karamjit Singh Rai is still around, hi, Dr. Rai. He was the head of the mosquito genetics project. I looked him up the other day. He's got a foundation for giving scholarships to I presume Sikh kids in India for science careers. And yeah, he was pretty impressive. He was trying to do with radiation what people are able to do with CRISPR now. The whole idea was to create a mosquito where the male mosquitoes are absolutely harmless. They don't bite. They are strictly pollinators and nectar eaters. So they wanted to create a mosquito where the males that it produced were all like him, carrying this fatal gene, and the females all died before they pupated. And they can do that with CRISPR now. They're working on that. They've done at least 2 releases that I know of that have been pretty successful.
In Florida, right?
Yeah, and what they're going after is Aedes aegypti, which from the name you might guess is from Egypt. So it's not a native mosquito. So you're not even tampering with North American ecology. And
Yeah, we just got them a few years ago. They're awful. They are voracious.
they're horrible. And
Yeah.
Asian tiger mosquitoes are even worse. And Asian tiger mosquitoes, it's bad enough that Aedes aegypti can carry yellow fever and other similar diseases, but Asian tiger mosquitoes carry breakbone fever, which is one of those things that if you get it, you're going to wish you would die. It is that awful. And it's not usually fatal, but oh God, you wish it was. And they also, I believe, carry Zika, which is the disease that affects unborn children that basically destroys their brain.
I think Aedes might too, I think, and the Aedes also does dengue, I think.
Yeah, and yeah, Aedes definitely carries dengue. Another
I was
horrible
just-
thing.
Yeah, I was just saying if we could rid the world of mosquitoes.
Well, we don't want to rid it entirely of mosquitoes. There are plenty of mosquitoes that are good. There are plenty of mosquitoes that don't require a blood meal.
Are there really? I didn't know that. That's
One of
news.
the other projects they had under the umbrella of the mosquito genetics project at Notre Dame was to breed, and I wish I could remember what kind of mosquito it is. It is the most terrifying thing you've ever seen in your life. It's black. It's about the size of a small horsefly, and it has this wicked long curved proboscis. And it looks like it would give you the worst bite ever. And they're completely harmless. But what they do is their larvae prey on the larvae of other mosquitoes.
Oh,
And they were trying to work out if they could breed these things to withstand a North American winter.
can they? I mean, have they been able to?
No,
Not yet.
nope.
Maybe eventually, huh?
Well, I think the CRISPR thing is probably it's really got the best potential of working, because you can be so specific to that particular type of mosquito, and you don't mess around with other mosquitoes. I mean, we've already lost one bird because a particular kind of mosquito got wiped out in the Florida salt marsh, and we lost the salt marsh wren because that's all they ate.
Yeah, I figure there's gotta be a
So let's
natural problem.
Yeah, let's stick with being specific rather than using a sledgehammer.
Good idea.
Definitely. Do you consider, I mean, your books they're so real, but they're fantasy. I always consider them fantasy. Do you have but do you have ones that are more science fiction? Or
I've done some science fiction. I did a Brain Ship book with Anne McCaffrey, and I did one of the Wizard of Karas books with Eric Flint and Dave Freer. And I did a pure, no holds barred space opera with werewolves, vampires, and zombies in space with Cody Martin. We started it as novellas that we did in the Phoenix series for Shahid, and then we eventually did a third part, what he put together into an actual books, and it's called Reboots Undead Can Dance. And it all came because somebody was pitching an anthology to me of vampires, werewolves, and zombies in space. And I thought it was the most stupid idea I'd ever heard. And I was talking to Cody on the phone. We were working on another project, and I was talking to Cody on the phone, and I said, that is the most stupid premise I've ever heard in my, oh my God, I thought of an idea. I literally said just that.
That's funny.
And I got the best Publishers Weekly review I have ever gotten from that book.
Now, Mercedes, do you enjoy working with other authors? Is that something?
I love it.
Do
I
you?
absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Do you have anything coming up with other authors
Yes.
that you can talk about or not?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
We have a couple of projects that don't have homes that we're working on anyway. They're both urban fantasy. One is sillier than the other. One is, the premise is Adam's first wife, Lilith, lo these many thousands of years later, she's mellowed out. She's a pretty happy gal. She's found her niche running a sex toys and sexy lingerie shop in Toronto. And the other one came from the idea that apparently Airbnb has their own in-house facility that is like rescue rangers. They swoop in if your house gets trashed, or there's God forbid, there's a murder in it, or someone just dropped dead in it. You call them and they come and they take care of it all. they deal with the police, they do all the cleanup, they do all the hazmat, all that stuff. And I thought, what if there was a version of that for supernatural occurrences in your Airbnb? So that's we're calling that one the Fixers, and Veronica and I are working on that right now. We finally hashed out the outline, and we're working on the prose right now. And then Cody and I are working on the third silence book, which is going to be called Lifting Silence.
How do you find it to work on so many projects at one time? Is it easy for you?
Yeah, it's very easy. Actually, it's not just very easy, it's very useful, because if I get stuck on one, I can move over to the other, and that usually unsticks me.
Do you do like one part of the day you work on something and then another part?
That's how I usually do it, yeah.
Do you write, like when you're writing with a partner, do you trade off chapters, or do you have?
Right now, oh gosh, I almost forgot. There's I've got a book under contract. We finished the outline for with Rosemary Edgehill, and that's just a classic fantasy. But anyway, mostly with my core group, we work in Google Docs in the same document, usually at the same time.
Wow.
So you'll
Yeah.
both be online, so it's kind of like you're brainstorming
Oh, it
together.
can be it can be all 5 of us online at the same time. 4 of us.
Wow.
Wow.
4 of us, not 5 of us.
Working on the same project?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That sounds like you'd almost need to
Well, it's
be.
like being in an RP game. It's exactly like being in an RP game. We know where it's going. We've got the outline. We know where it's going, but this way the dialogue is very, very natural, because we're literally typing the dialogue to each other.
Wow.
Oh, that's very cool.
Did you do a lot of RP games?
Yeah, I mean, I go all the way back to when Dungeons and Dragons was Greyhawk and passed off on mimeographed pages stapled together.
Wow.
So yeah, I go back way back in RP gaming.
I think that helps a lot of writers. Elizabeth and I are not RP players, but so many fantasy and science fiction writers are.
Yeah, and I certainly remember, all the Dungeon and Dragon players, even though I was never one, when Andrea and I were first meeting,
It can be useful. I think the drawback to somebody who is coming into writing primarily from RPing is that they have the idea that their last campaign is going to make a great book. And I'm going to be honest with you, that's worked for exactly 3 writers in the entire history of the known universe. And all 3 of them did work for TSR.
Which 3 writers?
Oh, Hickman, Weiss, and Ray Feist.
Cool.
So yeah. First of all, they were good writers. Second of all, they were working for TSR. And third of all, they were good writers, and it just sort of happened that TSR decided to do some books and they got contracted to do them. Anybody else, if you can hear, if I read a book and I can hear the dice rattling in the background, that's the end of that book.
So thank you so much for talking. It has been such a pleasure. We look forward to chatting again. And of course, we always end each segment with the best thing I learned this week. And I usually start, because I do. So the best thing I learned this week is, as probably most people have heard, there's a big garbage patch in the ocean. It's been there I think it was discovered in the 70s. And because the ocean currents, you know, bring all this garbage together. So this big ocean patch of garbage has been being monitored, but it's not getting bigger, which doesn't make any sense. And they now think that the reason it's not getting bigger is because some creatures are shocked into fast evolution by our actions. And one of these is the little bacteria that eat plastic. They have so much, I guess, that they are saying that the patch is staying about what it was. It's not shrinking, but it's not growing because of all these plastic eating bacteria that are now proliferating, which is interesting too, because it seems almost totally like, oh, this is so great. But of course, it's not going to take care of our problems. Plus, what if, you know, it'd be like Ice 9 or something from Vonnegut, where all the water turns to ice that you touch. If all the plastic suddenly starts getting eaten, that would be an interesting problem. So that's my best thing.
Would be. Mine is that they have created a biofilm of bacteria today. Bacteria cells that is about the thickness of a sheet of paper, and you're going to be able to stick it on like a patch, and it makes energy from the moisture in your skin. So it's going to be able to make things like medical sensors and small personal devices. It's going to be able to give energy to them to power them. So I thought that was cool.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah. That was mine.
What was mine?
What was
Mine
yours?
is way more personal.
That's okay.
My agent told me last night that we've finally gotten over another significant hump that he did not elucidate on what that significant hump was in the media deal for Valdemar. So one more hump. Don't get excited. Don't. Yes, all these things can die so quickly in production hell. You know, you can get all the way up to having and airing a pilot, and then nothing happens. So, you know,
Really?
Yeah.
Don't count on anything, but at least we got over another hump.
That's
Well,
good. Yeah, that's so fickle. So
And
tough.
of course, we want to thank our wonderful, wonderful producer, Maria Korloff, and our wonderful, wonderful editor, Alex Korloff. Yes, they are related.
Yes. And we want to let you know that Long Lost Friends is brought to you by MetaStellar Magazine. And we're an online magazine, and we publish original science fiction, horror, and fantasy. And there's a link below here for more information if you want to look it up. And please, if you enjoyed our video, like it and leave comments. We'd love to know what you're thinking. And if you'd like to help support the magazine, and all the monies that we get on our Patreon page go to support it and help us publish original content. It all goes to writers. And so you can visit our Patreon page. And thank you so much, Mercedes. This has been so much fun. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us.
All right. It was
Yeah,
great.
Great.
Bye.
Bye.
Live long and prosper.